and we're back for another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there that's all of our shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, hint, 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 or do anything that you can to follow us right here at the Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Game Source, NBA Draft Junkies, the Locked On NBA Draft Podcast, and our friends at the Hoopheads Podcast Network. It is sincerely appreciated. Well, he returns to us again, and this is going to be a part one, I'm hoping, of something really special that I can try and get as many NBA podcasters as I can that take care of selective teams. And this guy right here, he doesn't have an NBA-centric team podcast per se, but he is the mastermind behind the Locked On NBA Draft Podcast. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today at the Locked On NBA Draft Podcast. And, of course, everything that he does relating to NBA Draft Junkies on YouTube and NBADraftJunkies.com. As you know, and as you've heard many times on this show, he is an ardent Portland Trail Blazers fan. It is my good friend indeed, the man who was told yes by his soon-to-be bride, and I'm so happy and still ecstatic to this day for him. It is my good friend indeed. It is Mr. Rafael Barlowe. And Rafael, thanks for coming back, man. I am back from the beaches of Hawaii just to come and talk to you, my friend.
Well, thanks for having me on, and kind of jealous that you were in Hawaii while I was. I think where was that? Here in Dallas. So I would take Hawaii over Dallas.
Were you watching Julius Randle ride in a bicycle this time around? Because we saw that one time before he had his tremendous season last year.
No, I haven't seen him. I don't think he lives by me more. But no, I haven't seen him. I mean, whatever he did last summer, he should just stick to the same game plan, because he definitely had a really good season. Absolutely, my friend. But Hawaii was sensational. Hint, hint to you and the future misses on possible honeymoon destinations. I'm just throwing that out there. But it was truly incredible, all the islands that we went to. But we're here to talk basketball, my friend. And as a man who loves the Portland Trail Blazers almost as much, well, actually probably more than you love the NBA draft, or maybe just as much. We'll just say that. But I would tell you, my friend, that the Portland Trail Blazers were a great part of the conversation this offseason. I know a lot of it is centered around Dame Lillard and what Damian Lillard's future will be like. He, according to recent podcasts, of course, according to recent comments and social media, blah, 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 he's said that he is still a committed individual to what's going on in Portland, but he is keeping a rather sharp eye on what's going on in offseason moves. And so far, they have retained Norman Powell on a 5-year, $90 million deal. They got Larry Nance Jr., hopefully to help that porous defense in a 3-team trade with the Cavs and the Bulls. They got Cody Zeller on a vet minimum. Ben McLemore is still, I think, on a minimum as well. They drafted Greg Brown, the very athletic player out of Texas that you and I have talked about before, as a second-round pick. They got Trendon Watford on a 2-way. Tony Snell, I think, is another vet minimum. Dennis Smith, I think, is a non-guaranteed deal. Marquise Chris is a non-guaranteed deal. And Patrick Patterson, who they signed today on a non-guaranteed deal to compete in camp for a spot. So there you have it, my friend, plus all the stuff that's going on with your team already. I want to hear your thoughts on what your expectations are for this season for the Portland Trail Blazers. Man, that's a tough question.
You knew I was going to ask it.
Yeah. Well, one, they have to stay healthy. I mean, that's the main thing, is staying healthy. It seems like the last few years, whether it was CJ missing time this year or this past season, the year before, I mean, they were decimated with injuries, and that's how they ended up bringing in Carmelo. Cantor's missed plenty of time. So if they can stay healthy, then I think that they'll be good. As far as just like how far they can go in the playoffs, I don't know. I thought they've had a pretty interesting offseason. I mean, it was definitely dominated by all the talk about Dame, whether or not he's leaving.
I think that I don't see him leaving, to be honest with you. I think he was just frustrated, which, as you could expect, he would be frustrated after losing in the first round again. But Dame is, from all we've known, has been loyal. And I think that seeing Giannis win in Milwaukee and, a small market team, the team that drafted him, I think that probably helps Portland out a little bit. I definitely don't think that it was Terry Stotts' fault. I don't think that he was the issue. I think the issue was injuries and just roster construction. I mean, the Blazers weren't athletic at all. And, anytime you have Melo and Cantor expected to play a lot of minutes, then your defense, your interior defense is definitely not going to be that good. But I felt this offseason they've added athleticism. I mean, Derrick Jones Jr. is a freak athlete, but they've added athleticism and skill and defense. I think Nance is going to be an upgrade. I think he's a pretty good passer. Zeller is good to see him get out of Charlotte. It seemed like he had been there forever. Tony Snell is like an underrated pickup. I don't know why he doesn't play a lot, but if you look at his numbers the last couple of years, it's been crazy. Like last year, I want to say he shot like 50, 50, 100. That was the shooting splits. And it wasn't in a lot of minutes. And I don't know if he just doesn't take shots. But if he can, just knock down open shots, which he has been doing. But if he can come in and contribute, then, that could be one of the more underrated pickups. Yeah, last season, he played in 47 games, shot 51% from the floor, 57% from three, and 1,000% from the free throw line, but only 5 points per game. So, I think that could be an underrated pickup. Dennis Smith Jr., that's a risk, high risk or risk reward. Same with Marquise Chris. Maybe Michael Beasley will end up on the team. So I think they've had a sneaky good offseason. I don't know if it's enough to really make a lot of noise in the West.
So right now, I know that at some point in time, we are going to go ahead and do our season preview where we go over, and that was such a great episode that we did last year, predicting what was coming, what was to come in the NBA season. Although neither of our picks were right for the finals because it was Brooklyn, LA at that point in time, and now flash forward a year later, it may likely be Brooklyn, LA again, but we're going to go ahead into another episode coming down the line before the season starts on that one. But seeing where you're at right now with the Portland Trail Blazers, and let's focus on them, where do you see them competing in the Western Conference? Where do you see them realistically?
It's tough to say because they've been competitive the last few years without really being healthy. And if the defense improves and they can stay healthy, which hasn't been the case, then they may be able to be a team that is, I don't know about top four, but maybe a team that can end up being like the 6th seed, best case scenario. But it's a matter of health. You got a rookie coach, and if the defense can improve, they've given up on Zach Collins, who everybody had been expecting to be like not necessarily the difference maker, but definitely someone that was going to be a high-level role player, high-level starter. And, he just has not played much in the last 3 years. And I would say best case scenario, maybe like the 6th seed. And that's just off the top of my head without breaking down all the teams in the West.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you is, I think, like you said, obviously staying healthy is number one. Nikola, it's just Christian. Just as far as Jurkic, he lost so many games last year to injury, and like you said, with the whole entire roster losing a great percentage of the season to injury, it led to a lot of things, including the 29th ranked defense. That's something I think that needs to be an area of concern and a point of contention for new coach Chauncey Billups. How do you think he's going to be able to incorporate a new defense? Obviously he has that defensive background from his days with Detroit and the championship that they beat the Lakers on back in 2004. I want to hear your thoughts on this. And then also, like I said, when it comes to Portland, the overwhelming factor is with Ben Simmons, they're that's one of the destinations that's been talked about.
No.
Okay, so even though you have the 29th ranked defense, you think Larry Nance is a step in the right direction. If he's healthy, that's the hardest thing for him is staying healthy. He can really help that defense, but I see that Ben Simmons looks for you not to be the answer.
Well, I mean, if you get Ben, you're giving up CJ or Dame. That's not going to make you better. Defensively, Ben will help if he is on the team with Dame and CJ. But then in the playoffs, he's just going to disappear. So, I mean, like if he's, in the East, he does good in the first round against, Washington and the year before, 2 years before that, a Brooklyn team that wasn't good. But in the West, your first round matchup, no matter where you're seated, is going to be a tough team. I just don't see him doing anything in any pressure moments. And I'm just not a big Ben Simmons fan, so I may be a little bit biased there. I'm someone that was saying I would have taken Brandon Ingram number 1. But Ben just seems like a guy that is just naturally gifted, naturally talented, but just really could care less about getting better, doing the things that is asked of him to make everyone better. And he's been enabled. And, what could be so bad in Philly that he decides to basically quit on the team? Is it just because Joel made the comment that somebody passed up a dunk and we only got one free throw, or Doc saying, I don't know if Ben Simmons could be the point guard on a winning team, and after all of that, he decides I don't want to play with him anymore? That's just not somebody that I would want on my team.
I agree. I mean, it's going to be a hard thing for him to go ahead and for all this concern, this Ben Simmons saga is going to drag on out, and just trying to find the right team, and Daryl Morey trying to get as much as he can out of it, and being hindered by what's going on with this whole scenario. So we'll see how that rectifies itself. But yes, you're right. If he goes to Portland, he would have to go for most likely CJ McCollum or Damian Lillard, and I don't think at this point Portland's willing to budge on that. So I think right now a lot of it is, can you keep Yusuf Nurkic healthy? Can you keep the individuals on that team healthy? And if you can, I think you've got a good chance to go ahead and be in that 4 through 8 seeding. Like you said, 6 is right around what I'm thinking about as well, maybe even 5th. I mean, that's something that really can happen if they get the defense a little bit better up to par this year.
Yeah, defensively, and the thing I like about Nance is that he gives them another ball mover, another guy that can make plays for others. I know that was kind of one of my issues with Portland, is that they didn't have guys that could make a play for others. You gave them all, let's say, Carmelo, it's going up. If it was Derrick Jones Jr., it was going up. Like, they didn't have another guy that could at least put the ball on the floor and make a play. I think with Nance, he's someone that they can run a high screen and roll for him. And if he has the ball in the middle of the floor, he has the vision and the passing instincts to, whether it's throw a lob to like Nurk or a pocket pass or hit the ball, find guys in the corners. So I think adding another guy that has good passing instincts to help. And then, I mean, we already know he's athletic, but he's natural 4. And so the Blazers haven't had a natural 4 that is athletic and can defend in quite some time. So I like to pick up. I think it's underrated, but, it's just a matter of him staying healthy and if he can space the floor on offense.
I agree with you on that. Once again, it's my good friend, Mr. Rafael Barlowe. You got to catch what he's doing today at NBADraftJunkies.com, NBA Draft Junkies on YouTube, and, of course, his amazing podcast. Are you doing Fridays still, or is it just you Mondays and Thursdays?
I'm scheduled for Mondays and Thursdays, but the Friday slot is open. So if I have like a great podcast that I need to split in 2, then I'll put it on Fridays. I'm thinking about, adding a third day. It's just right now it's such a dead period, and it's already tough enough to come up with podcast content twice a week unless I get good guests on or somebody that talks a lot. And right now, I mean, I've really only been able to talk about a lot of the international prospects because they've played more recently in FIBA play. But Right now it's just set for 2 days, but I will occasionally throw in a Friday episode.
Well, it's a must listen for any NBA draft aficionados or anybody who likes to know more about the prospects that are out there that are coming in upcoming drafts. Plus, they give, in later shows recent shows, they've actually talked about the NBA as a whole and obviously what they saw from Summer League and what they saw from the draft and going forward. So some interesting shows still can be had each and every day out on the Locked On NBA Draft podcast. Hey, it is Ronell Keith Mills. He said, dope panel, brony. All right. Okay. All right. Well, Ronell, thank you so much for joining us right now on the show. We truly appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing your comments. We truly thank you for watching and listening. Rafael, I will actually, as part of the shows with all these different podcasters from NBA teams that cover different NBA teams out there, obviously the one thing I'm going to ask you is, how do you, as a Portland Trail Blazers fan, perceive the Lakers so far, what they've done, and their outlook? You could just gloss over it because, again, we're going to go ahead and cover this in greater detail on our season preview coming up as it gets closer to the season. But what are your thoughts so far on the Lakers and where they stand?
First of all, shout out to Ronell. Thanks for watching. The Lakers, I'm not a Lakers fan, so I might be a little bit biased here.
Oh, that's fine. But you know what? You've always been very gracious on the show, either which way.
Yeah, I mean, even though I may be biased, I still try to, make valid comments and not go too far. Whoops, looks like I lost you for a second.
Oh, I'm back. You're back.
All right. So here's my thing about the Lakers offseason. If Bron doesn't get hurt and AD doesn't get hurt, or